We are here with Filipa Ramos for HYPER Annotations 3.0, Triple Ampersand's public program. Filipa is the curator of the Catalan Pavilion. Filipa, thank you for being here. It's nice to have you. So I wanted to ask you firstly, how would you situate this year's pavilion, this year's Catalan Pavilion, within the history of Catalan pavilions in the Venice Biennale?
Thank you. I'm not an expert in the history of Catalan pavilions, ironically, just because I'm from Portugal. And what happened is this spring, or last spring, the artist with whom I'm working, Carlos Casas, he gave me a call and said, Filipa, let's apply. Catalonia is doing an open call. I said, Carlos, you're half Catalan, half Asturian. You live in Paris. I'm Portuguese. Let's apply. And we applied and we were shortlisted and we were selected, which for me is incredible and a huge surprise. But also was a huge surprise because this means that there was the trust of the selection committee to welcome two individuals who in different ways have been associated with Catalonia. Carlos, of course, grew up there and half of his family is from there. I've studied there, I did a postgraduate there and I worked there for 1 year. But at the same time, it's almost as if they were saying, okay, Catalonia is not only those who were born here and are rooted here, but are also those who decided at a certain moment to anchor themselves here, and its nationalities are more than just like the birth belonging, no? But this means that it also makes me quite anomalous in relation to the history of Catalan pavilions, which as far as I understand has largely been shaped by artists and architects, in case of the Venice Architecture Biennale, who are from there and live there now. There are some cases that have been extremely important for me and a reference, and one of them is when the filmmaker Albert Serra made the pavilion together with curator Chus Martinez. That was also an incredible installation of moving images. Albert Serra working mostly with film, and for me was one of the highlights of that Biennale. And I kept revisiting that experience, the way they transformed the pavilion, the way they turned the pavilion into a cinema with multi-screens. And then two different experiments where thoughts concerning identity, social justice, environmental justice, as the case of Lara Fluxà, the artist who represented Catalonia in the last Venice Biennale, kept doing. So I think we come somehow dialoguing with some traditions of thought that have been supported by the Catalan Pavilion, while at the same time also bringing something new, which is that you can become Catalan in one way or another.
Very nice. So how did you and Carlos Casas get acquainted, firstly, and also what was the sort of work process that went into this pavilion?
So Carlos and I have been friends for a long, long time. We knew each other from a common friend, let's say even more than that. Carlos's best friend, his oldest friend, is my former partner. And so we were almost like a family, and I've accompanied his work through friendship. I mean, friendship is complicated because it can be difficult to work with friends, but at the same time, friends are people you trust and whose values you tend to share. And with the diasporic ways of life that we have, friends become often our families as well, no? And so Carlos and I have been exchanging ideas, references, a common love for nature for a start, for animals, but also for music and for traditions of experimental and avant-garde music and cinema. But also a few years ago in 2020, when I co-curated the Shanghai Biennale, I invited Carlos to develop a project he had been working on for quite a while, which is an investigation, a sonic investigation of the explosion of the Krakatoa volcano in Indonesia, which is a volcanic explosion that happened in the 19th century, and whose effects were so strong that conditioned the climate in Europe. And he decided to based on meteorological information available, to recreate the sonic experience of that explosion in the chimney of the power plant of art of the Shanghai Biennale. And that was, let's say, our first official collaboration that evolved and also paved the way for the way we've worked together here. The way we work here is largely through dialogue. Carlos is also very, very secretive, so you have to trust him. You have to respect his silences that say much more than the lack of words, and his intuition. And then we have long conversations about the ideas, his passions, his interests, and slowly be allowed into this glimpses of visions and of sounds that whenever he feels ready, he shares. So it's been a collaboration that is based on exchanges and dialogue, and then of little open up that Carlos has spontaneously every now and then.
Yes. And speaking of nature and animals and volcanoes, as I understand it at least, a lot of your work is quite concerned with ecology. So how do you expect this artistic and political theme will be represented in this year's Biennale?
That's a question that the selection committee also asked us. They asked us, how are you responding to the theme of foreigners everywhere with this project? Yeah. And well, for me, an important belief is that if we don't start to profoundly intersect the struggles for the rights of nature, if we don't start to intersect environmental justice with social justice, it's very difficult to progress, because at the end, let's say we have a common goal, which is transformation and the emancipation of the living, no? And it's liberation from this hypnotic process that modernity, Western white modernity spelt upon us, called colonialism and its declinations, that determined that there is a radical separation between nature and people, and then between some people from other people, no? And when the curator of the Venice Biennale, Andrea Pedrosa, mentioned that the theme was going to be foreigners everywhere. No, foreigners, yes. Exactly. Something that became very clear to me was, well, throughout this consolidation of modernity, we have estranged and marginalized nature as a way to pave the way for the marginalization of people. Of indigenous people considered to be closer to nature, and then to all different degrees and classifications of people that the white Western invented, no? And therefore, it is important to also think how nature is foreign in its own home, and to contribute to this dialogue by uniting these thoughts on social and environmental justice.
Yes. And how did the idea come about to do this pavilion in the way in which it was done?
So, a couple of years ago, Carlos was developing a project called Cemetery, which was a big research on a cemetery of elephants. He shot it in Sri Lanka in collaboration with a series of local communities, and it's a project that took him almost 10 years to develop. And through this research, he came across a book from 1417, written by, let's say, a mystic from Mallorca. Mallorca is part of what is called the Països Catalanos, the Catalan countries, no? And in this book, which is called The Dispute of the Donkey, the author, Anselm Turmeda, tells the story of a process in which a group of animals, led by a donkey, is trialed. A group of animals trials a person, a man, for considering himself and the whole humanity, this man represents humanity, superior to animals. And they say, we're tired of being deemed inferior, we're tired of anthropocentrism, and you understand our languages, you understand the languages of animals, and therefore we're going to question you on all different themes that go from disputing architecture, saying, look at how bees make houses. They're much more sophisticated than human architecture. Or consider how swallows know how to orient themselves and come back to their nests year after year in ways in which a human would never be able to navigate like this. Or how families care for how ants care for their families in ways that humans don't. And so this very careful study and analysis of human and animal nature fascinated Carlos, and he decided to turn this into a sound piece, a sort of a sonic exploration of this this investigation, of this narrative, and also to do so investigating the different expressive means of animals, capturing sounds and pitches that generally are not perceptible to human hearing, like ultrasounds and infrasounds of bats, of snakes, of dolphins, and also capturing with different vision systems, infrared cameras and different systems, the perceptive realms of different animals, so that there is an attempt to go beyond an anthropocentric dominated perspective. And so this is the result, is this inspiration in the past, in kind of a founding text of Catalan literature from the past, merging with the current concerns about the world and in dialogue with the current possibilities that we have, also associating ourselves with technology to understand and to be closer to the perceptive and sensorial realms of non-humans.
Very well put. We like to end things on a bit of a light question. Is there any particular pavilion or show that you're particularly excited to see?
Ooh, I'm excited to try to see something. I'm super curious about this odyssey of a project that John Aconfora is preparing together with curator Tarini Malik for the British Pavilion, which I think is going to be incredible. And John really deserves this recognition for his work, and this going to a major project. I'm very curious about the film installation that artist Saudat Ismailova, an artist from Uzbekistan who was also present at the last Venice Biennale, is presenting at Nebula, the exhibition of in-between art film. I was curious, even if it took me to a very dark place, about the exhibition that Pierre Huyghe has at Punta de la Dogana, which is monumental, but also extremely dark. And I'm also very, very curious about the Pavilion of Croatia, which is based on exchange and is trying to understand how a process of exchange can make an exhibition. And then I'm just curious to discovering new artists. There's a huge list of artists I've never heard about, and this is what makes a Biennale so special in the main exhibition. So that as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Filipa.
Thank you.